I think that my family for so long, they really loved this person that I was pretending to be. And they'll say that, hey, I love you, but I can't accept you this way because God, whatever. And it's just weird because if you love me, don't you love me?
Okay. 1, 2, ready, go.
Welcome to the Called to Be Bad podcast. My name is Mariah Martin, and I feel called to be bad. It turns out I'm not the only one. Join us as we dig into all things bad, scandalous, deviant, you know, the stuff that makes good church folks squirm in the sanctuary. Why? Well, because sometimes the scandalous is spiritual, deviant is divine, and bad is beautiful. Say yes to the call, and let's see what holy trouble we get into today. Hello, Cedar.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So this is Cedar Moss, and Cedar is an up-and-coming author, poet, and activist with a blog and an overly active imagination. I can identify with that. Cedar writes about mental illness, feminism, the queer experience, religious trauma, etc., and how all of these things intersect. They hope to use their voice to amplify the oppressed and help others feel seen. So today, before we get into our topic, I'd love to introduce our drinks. So I am, drinking my typical black coffee. Some days I'll mix it up. And I have my Bunny Moon mug. And what do you have?
This is chai tea, but it's special somehow. I forget how, but yeah. And I mixed honey and milk in with it, and it's in my little gnome cup.
Oh, okay, so there's two little gnomes on there. That's really cute. Hello, beloved baddies. A quick break to tell you that this episode is sponsored by the Center for Art, Humor, and Soul, a nonprofit that supports and amplifies the voices of edgewalkers through art that catalyzes change, laughter that brings us together, and soul awakening to the creative spark within us. The support from the Center for Art, Humor, and Soul has meant the world to this podcast. So I highly encourage you to check out their website, arthumorandsoul.com, to see their other featured artists and projects. If you want to support the podcast, you can check out our Patreon or get in touch. Now I'll let you get back to this episode of Called to Be Bad. So today we are going to talk about what it means to be non-binary in the church. This means we're going to talk about gender expression, all the things. And so Cedar and I had the idea that we would paint our nails while we're talking because, gender expression makes sense. And so I'm going to be painting my nails a really dark, kind of like navy, almost black color. And what are you going to be doing, Cedar?
Well, I'm going to take this off because it's chipping and try again.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do some other color. I'm not sure yet. Maybe this one.
Okay. And do you want to say why your middle finger is painted black?
Yes. I had this brilliant idea that asexual people or people that are on the asexual spectrum could paint our middle fingers black because the middle finger is the special finger. And black could mean like, yeah, no, I don't do special stuff like that.
I don't do the special stuff.
The special thing. Not very interested in it. And I am demisexual on the asexual spectrum. So
okay. Do you want to explain what demisexual means?
Yeah, demisexual means that you are not interested in sex and you're not attracted to people unless you have a very good connection with someone, and then you would be attracted to only that person or someone, like just people that you have very special connections to. You don't get attracted to just someone because they're attractive. You can notice that they're attractive, but don't care about it. Maybe you just want to look at them because they're pretty and not because they're exciting you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So you can acknowledge attractiveness, but that doesn't mean you're attracted to them.
Yes, that's how I like to say it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So today, along with talking about gender, being non-binary, That can be for some, maybe for many, a sensitive topic. I think that it can come with a lot of pain, with some baggage, I guess you could say. So we're just asking that people who are listening to, take care of yourself. If gender dysphoria, if that is a hard topic for you, take it slowly, do what you need to do. And also I'd ask that we all have patience with this topic. For some, it can be new and it can be confusing. So let's approach this topic with patience and grace and empathy, a posture of learning and curiosity. Let's just not decide how we feel about things before learning, maybe. In addition to that call to sensitivity and patience and empathy, I do want to give a more thorough content warning. We will be talking about end-of-life thoughts, suicidal tendencies, in addition to severe abuse from the church and rape at the hands of a church leader. So, yeah, again, take care of yourself. I think that Cedar's stories and experiences are worth listening to, but I want you to do it in a way that is safe. And I know that through listening to Cedar's experiences, that perhaps you will feel seen and understood and maybe can relate to their experience. Do you want to add anything, Cedar?
Yeah. Sometimes we really want to hear something and we really want to feel seen by something, but we know that this thing is going to trigger us, or we know that this is going to take a toll on us. So maybe we could, maybe taking an hour to plan a self-care plan after this, or taking an hour to get in our bodies and remind ourselves that we're safe, drink some tea, or watch a show that makes us feel comfortable, or putting up some protection around our minds and our hearts before listening to something that we know we're going to relate to, that we know is going to help us later. But just so that we can stay safe, because these things are triggering, and triggers can go from anywhere to shivers, a panic attack, an anxiety attack, all the way over to more traumatic spaces. And so loving ourselves is more important than challenging ourselves sometimes. So finding a way to do this safely and to care for ourselves and be able to grow at the same time is always the best way to do this.
Yes. And we filmed this content warning at the end, but we painted our nails while we talked, and I love that because it feels to me like an act of self-care and self-love, and it's also an embodied practice. And so I'd invite people who, if this feels comfortable and good to you, to also partake in an embodied experience while you listen, like walking or painting your nails or something. And because I think that can keep you in your body while talking about hard things. And can I just say, I really love that my nails match my mug. And
oh my God, they do.
And it makes me really happy. They're both the same color of dark blue, but also kind of shiny. And anyways, it makes me happy. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to start painting my nails also. Why don't we start with some definitions, so we have a sense of shared language. These don't have to be the be-all, end-all, Webster's dictionary definitions, but maybe the definitions that make sense to you. So let's start with being non-binary. And Cedar made it clear from the beginning, rightly so, that they do not speak for all trans non-binary people. So what does not being non-binary mean to you, Cedar Moss?
Being non-binary, yeah. To me, it means that I don't identify with either sex. I don't feel like a man or a woman, and I don't want to conform to it either. I want to be as in between as possible. And a lot of people that I know identify like that, but a lot of non-binary people, like they use the term non-binary and they are gender fluid, which is under the umbrella, the smaller umbrella of non-binary. And like they feel like they can identify with any type of gender depending on the day. But for me, it's no gender. I am genderless.
Genderless. And that I think learned recently, or been, I don't know if, yeah, just been reminded that that's not necessarily a third gender, correct?
Yeah, it's a spectrum.
Okay.
Gender, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, okay, gender is a spectrum. So, like, would that be like male, female on one, male and female on one end, and then in between, and then non-binary would be, like, where would non-binary fit on the spectrum?
Well, male and female are sex, not gender.
Okay, yeah.
But like, so a non-binary person can have the sex of male, but their gender is not male. So there is man and woman on both ends, and then non-binary is anywhere in between.
Okay.
And sometimes it goes from man to woman. Well, someone might identify from man to woman or woman to man, and then maybe they like feel closer to the middle some days.
Okay. So biological sex and gender are different things.
Yes.
Okay. It's like I know that cognitively and like with language, because we're so entrenched in this, like, I don't know, the combination of the two, like that, because we've paired them together, gender and sex, for so long, it comes out in my language, even if I cognitively know that they're separate. I remember learning in my religion and sex class at Goshen College that gender is a composite of 5 different things. Let me see if I say this right. So gender is societal expectations on what is masculine or feminine. Gender is derived from biological sex or chromosomes. Gender is derived from hormonal levels, testosterone, estrogen, and then external genitalia and internal organs, I guess. That was how I was taught, and that all those 5 things end up into how we talk about gender. I don't know. What do you think of that? That was also like, I don't know, 5 years ago. So maybe things have changed.
Yeah. The place that I get a little bit confused about what you said is this the way that we think about gender as society and talk about it, or is it how they're saying it actually is?
I think this is how we talk about it.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not, I mean, because in my opinion, yeah, I think gender and gender expression are up for the individual to choose how they identify and express. But I think what society gets painted as masculine or feminine are determined by those 5 things, or can be.
Yeah, I feel like that's true. The way that society approaches gender and sex, I think they're often, society as a whole basically right now, thinks that it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of times people ask a non-binary or trans person, like a transbinary person, what's in your pants? That should answer all your questions. And like it really doesn't, because how someone feels and expresses and understands themselves oftentimes has nothing to do with their body. But people are talking like sex, and it does have to do with your body, and sex is just a label that someone put on genitalia.
Right.
So it's like those are 2 very different things. But as society, we like to connect them because it's easier, and I feel like in the past it was all about reproduction, and as long as we get to the goal of achieving another human, then it shouldn't matter. But since we live in a safe society, we're allowed to remain in our brains a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So we can figure these things out now.
And also from a biological perspective of there being two sexes. That's not true.
Mhm.
Like biologically speaking, you know, there are intersex people, and also it's like so much more complicated. I wish I had resources pulled up, but yeah, it's much more complicated than, what is it, XXXY chromosomes. I mean, like, from a chromosomal perspective, it is more complicated than that.
Mhm.
So that is something that is interesting to me when we're talking about, like, God designed people male and female. Well,
He designed the spectrum and he gave us the starting ending points. It's like something I thought about and something that someone else has talked to me about was how, like, in the beginning, you know, God created them male and female. But it nowhere else does it say that these are the only options you have. It just says that he gave us a starting point.
mm-hmm.
So, like, why is it such a big deal later on? It's like, you know what? I really like these things, but I feel like I'm not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying that these things are bad. It's saying that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And God never says that was a bad thing.
Right. And I've heard that it's a like a literary device to name like two things. And you know that the spectrum of in between is included there. So God made night and day. Okay, but what about dusk and what about dawn? And I'm drawing from Austen Hartke's work here. And you know, we don't just assume that there is only night and there is only day. It's kind of like when we say, like, you know, A to Z. We're not just saying A and Z. We know that the whole alphabet is included in between those. So that is a rhetorical device that is used in the Bible. But if we're not aware of that, then we just think it's either or, rather than this and that and everything in between.
Yeah, I really like that too. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it and understanding. Because people aren't going to say, you know, dusk is a sin.
Yeah.
It's like, there's nothing I can, like, are we all going to hell because we witnessed it?
Yeah.
That's really fair. I didn't plan this.
I didn't mean to, it just happened. Yeah, for sure. So Cedar helped me learn the relationship between being non-binary and trans. Would you explain how these terms interact? Because I thought of, well, anyways, I'll just let you explain the right way so I don't confuse people with the wrong way.
Yeah, and I'll do my best here, but I don't have a memorized definition. But, like, yeah, trans is like, say we have this umbrella, because umbrellas are easiest. And this is just trans right here. And then on either side of the edges of the umbrella, the 2D umbrella, we have man and woman, and these are binaries. But then, like, in between, we have the non-binary people, which are agender, gender fluid, demi-girl, demi-boy, etc. And so, like, non-binary is trans because we are not identifying with our genitals necessarily, with our gender and genitals aligned. We are expanded, enlightened.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, yeah, we're still trans because we don't identify as cis, but we're not trans-binary, which is a trans male, trans man, or trans female, trans woman. We're not binary, still trans, but just in between the spectrum.
Okay, so within the trans umbrella, you can identify as binary or non-binary.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you say cis, that means same as, yeah. So I would be defined as cisgender, meaning what I was assigned at birth is how I identify.
Yeah. You identify with the societal label of aligning female and woman together.
Right.
So you identify with your genitals, with the label of woman at the same time, cisgender.
Right. Can you say that last bit again? I cut you off.
Yeah. You identify with your genitals as your sex, and the woman part, which is socially given.
So both from like a biological sex perspective, how I was assigned at birth, and also my gender expression align.
Yes.
Okay. But I want to hear if you have any stories of like gender presentation from early on. And then we can move more into how you are now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, ever since I was, like, for as long as I can remember, I've always rebelled against the expectations for woman and girl in my church or like in my family. And my family is very large. My parents just didn't know when to stop. And I have 5 sisters. And like I always hated wearing dresses and skirts. And one of the reasons was because I couldn't run very fast in them, because they restricted my length, the length I could expand my legs, cover ground. And also like the wind gets caught on them much more easily. But also I didn't want to be a girl. I didn't want what I saw my cousins and my sisters and friends doing. I didn't like this whole submission thing. And I remember that even whenever I was like 6, I asked my brother to teach me the boy stuff so that I could do it on my own and like get the respect I wanted. Because in my church, it was very conservative and girls had very restrictive roles to play, and boys got to do whatever they wanted, and I wanted to do whatever I wanted. And I remember, like, even before I was 6, throwing fits whenever people would try to put me in dresses, like making it so difficult for them to fit a dress over my head and over my body, and tearing it off as soon as I could. And eventually, like, my family just made me some pants and let me wear pajama bottoms because I put up too much of a fight. And yeah, like, whenever I was more in tune with my body and less oppressed, I guess, or acknowledge the oppression less, I knew that I didn't want the girl stereotype for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wonder, I hope I say this in a sensitive way. I wonder if there would be less gender confusion and dysphoria and just like shame and pain around our gender and gender expression if we would have a more expansive notion of what it means to be a human, what it means to be male, female, feminine, masculine. What?
I think so. I think dresses wouldn't have been such a hard thing for me if they didn't symbolize submission. And pants wouldn't have been so freeing if I didn't have, if I was allowed to wear pants whenever I wanted. Because like these gender things, I feel like with non-binary people especially, it doesn't, like, it's not as much. I feel like the transbinary people have a little bit more of a struggle in some areas with clothing and stuff because the symbolism is more binary, you know. But for non-binary people, like, we get to define what that means all the time. So like non-binary means that the binary can't hold me, so I can wear a dress and it doesn't really mean anything, or I can wear pants and khaki pants and it doesn't really mean anything. But for transbinary people, it's much more. But like, if so, am I making sense? I'm struggling.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
The whole symbolism, like, if it didn't mean so much, if there wasn't submission and domination with genders and sex, then the dysphoria wouldn't be such a struggle, because, you know, dresses wouldn't mean submission. Dresses just meant a dress.
So yeah, do you want to talk more about your experience of being non-binary? Did you have an experience of like coming out? Does that happen with gender expression? I know we talk about coming out a lot in terms of sexuality, and I want to make clear, sexuality and gender expression are different things. But yeah, what is that? What was that like for you?
I figured out my sexuality a while before I accepted my gender experience, and coming out as, I thought I was bisexual at the time. I figured out later it's panromantic demisexual, but
Panromantic demisexual. You'll have to define it. I mean, I think I know what it means, but
yeah. Well, like, panromantic means that I can have a romantic connection with someone regardless of their gender. It has nothing to do with how they look. Demisexual, like I said before, is just like, I am not sexually attracted to someone unless I have a meaningful connection with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I can have a romantic and sexual relationship with anyone, but as long as I have that type of connection with them.
Got it.
But at the time I thought I was bisexual, and like, I thought I might be thrown out of home if I came out, but at the same time, I did come out. I was 16 and I told my parents, and I thought I was disgusting. And
they thought it was disgusting, or you thought it was disgusting?
They did too, but they didn't. My mom didn't tell me until later when we were having a fight. And that was heartbreaking. Because, like, there's nothing like having your parent tell you that you're disgusting because of your sexuality. And that was, like, really hard, those years living at home and being out to my parents and later my siblings. And my siblings got around to it pretty quickly. Like, I remember them all telling me at some point, like, doesn't matter to me. I think God's chill with this. And I love you. And it did take them a little bit. My parents are still stuck, though. But I came out last late summer as non-binary to my parents, and the spring before that to my siblings. And my siblings, all chill. Well, my two brothers, struggling. My parents, I told them that as long as you can call me by the name that I choose and use the correct pronouns, I want to have a relationship with you, and like, you are allowed to be in my life. But I was suicidal at the time because my life has been really hard, and just hearing someone not being able to love me all the time and putting me in this box that I don't belong in all the time hurts, and it feels like you're never seen. And I knew that if I couldn't exist the way that I needed to, I was going to kill myself. Mm. And so I asked my parents, like, hey, this is what I need you to do, or I can't have you in my life. And it's not because I don't love you. It's because you are killing me. Mm. And they chose to go. And I haven't spoken to them since. And it's been really hard. Like, yeah, still, like, sometimes I'll remember what it's like hugging them. and or hearing them pray, or like just remembering their voice, and it hurts a lot. And it's like, I want to talk to you again. I want to hug you, but can't. And like, I still get suicidal sometimes. And I feel like it wouldn't be as difficult if I was able to connect with them and have that relationship that I want. Because we were so close so much in my life. Like, out of my siblings, I was the one that had the best relationship with my parents until then. And now I'm the one that's farthest away from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to hear about. Yeah, I can't imagine what it would feel like to have a family member decide that it is better to live separated, not be in this person's life, than to accept who they are, who they say they are. Yeah.
It's something I go over in my mind over and over again, trying to understand why you would make that decision. And like, people have, like, other parents have tried to explain that it feels like you just killed someone, like, or like, and like, yeah, I have even said that I killed this person because, but they were never real. This person I was pretending to be my whole life. They were killing me. And I can't imagine anyone coming to me and like anyone that I know and saying, hey, you know what, I don't identify with this gender and I want you to switch pronouns and here's my real name. And I would just be like, fuck you. Jesus says otherwise. Get out of my life. I could not imagine doing that. And the thing is, like, I think that my family for so long, they really loved this person that I was pretending to be. And it's so weird because we are very similar. But my parents decided that this is the person that it has to be. And they'll say that, hey, I love you, but I can't accept you this way because God, whatever. And it's just weird because if you love me, don't you love me? No, they love dead name.
Yeah. I watched this TikTok, and it was this mom who was in counseling. Her child had come out as trans and wanted to be called a different name. And so the mom was wrestling with the therapist, like, how do I give up this name that I pondered over, that I chose with such care? And the therapist, I hope I get this right, the therapist responded by saying, your vision and your understanding for and your like hopes and dreams for this person are not to be compared with the lived experience and the struggles of that person. Like, you can't decide for your child who you want them to be. You do not get that privilege. They decide who they want to be. And your struggle with or your grief over their name is not to be compared with the grief and the struggle that person is feeling. And kind of put the mom in her place. And she was expressing, like, this was helpful for me. I needed to realize that what I'm experiencing, and like, it is, I'm sure it is real grief. Like, I don't want to diminish that. We all have visions for our future. And when that is not aligned with our present, with our reality, that hurts. Anytime our expectations are unfulfilled, that can hurt. But that is a different type of hurt than denying the personhood of anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true. I really like that you said that. And it's like, this is so selfish of parents, just centering on their own emotions instead of caring for their kid that's right in front of them, who is being emotionally and sometimes physically abused by the country that we live in, the world that we live in. And all they can think about is their own loss instead of the kid that is very oftentimes going through a painful mental illness and very oftentimes contemplating killing themselves because of these parents' decisions.
To hear the full conversation, tune into the next episode of Called to Be Bad. Here's a preview of what's to come in part 2.
So, like, this whole thing is like, can trans people be Christians? They always have been. Like,
Say it again. Say it again.
They always have been. There's nothing holding us back from having a community that just loves each other and God. There's nothing holding us back other than our own biases, our own fears.
That's all for this episode of Called to Be Bad. Keep being your bad, beautiful selves, and I will see you next time.